Good evening everyone, can I welcome you to the Brent Knoll Parish Council for our June meeting. Just before we start, I'll just double check to make sure that is there anyone in the public who would like to say anything before we start the meeting? No, that's fine. Okay. As members and members of the public may know, unfortunately we've heard that Councillor Brian Freestone, who was a councillor with us from 2002 to 2022, has unfortunately passed away. So I was going to ask if members would stand for a minute's silence, just in memory of Brian. Thank you all very much. Thank you. The first item on our agenda is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies?
We have apologies from Councillor Townsend and Holmes and Jane Gray. Three we have apologies from.
Okay. Are members happy to approve, acknowledge those apologies? Those in favour? Thank you. And then we have declarations of interests. I need to declare my normal declaration as a member of the Somerset Council, and I think we have a dispensation which now covers a number of members, which we recorded, which is those members that have shareholding in the shop, which I think actually I'm the only one here who's covered at the moment. Okay. I don't think we're covering anything with the hall, so I don't need to cover that, so that's fine. Next item is approve the minutes of the 1st of May, which has been circulated. Are there any amendments to those minutes? And if not, can I have a proposal that they are a true and accurate record, please? And then from Malcolm. All those in favour, please show. Clearly carried, so where would you like this? Each page.
Yeah, it used to be, but it's changing up.
Before we go on to the next item, which is planning matters, I'm just going to mention one item that has cropped up that I felt I needed to raise. We've had you'll remember at the last meeting we adopted or re-adopted our social media policy. There was activity over the last few days on social media, and what I will be doing is I'll be writing to all members of the Parish Council to remind them of what our policy says. There are a number of clauses that I think members need to be reminded of, that members will not post matters that are damaging to the Council's reputation and credibility, that within any posts they should be respectful to all. Members should not use guesswork or exaggeration and colourful language, and members should not criticise council policies or personnel. As I say, there were a number of posts over the weekend or during the last few days, which did, I think, personally breach some of those where it was implied that the council had used, I think the phrase was nifty word work, implying that there had been deliberate attempt to mislead people. Both I and the clerk were reported of biased reporting in information that was put in the Brent Knoll News. It was implied that misleading people again in terms of interest that was being received on the loans that we have drawn down. Obviously, it has been well debated at this meeting and with the public, the cost of the loans, the fact that obviously there is interest, everyone understands on a loan. The decision that we took as a council was to invest that money to offset some of that in the meantime whilst it wasn't being paid out. So that was, I think, again, unnecessary and implying that there was something untoward going on when there certainly is not. And I think it is important that we all are careful when we're on social media as to making sure that whether we are posting as a councillor or whether we're just posting our own name, people know that those of us who are councillors are. And if one wants to make critical comments, one is perfectly open to do that as a member of the public. But when we have all signed up to the policies to be behaved to how we should behave as councillors, that will be a decision for members to make. You can either do one or the other, you can't do both. And as I say, I shall be writing to all members to draw this to their attention again. There is no point in us agreeing and signing up to policies and then completely ignoring them. So we will, as I say, I will draw that to the attention of all members subsequent to this meeting. I'm sorry that there aren't more members present, but that's beyond my control. If we move on to the planning matters, the first item we have is for an amended set of plans, which is going to leave us with a problem.
Yeah,
yes.
I need to declare interest. But
Okay, so basically we have a planning application which is one that we have seen before. It has been amended by the applicant to actually physically reduce the size of the development that they're doing, and therefore reducing the impact. The difficulty we have is David declared an interest last time around because I think you carried out work for the people concerned. That means that when David leaves the room, we will not be we will not be able to debate this item, so I think we will have to leave this with no further comment than what we had before. But as I say, in this particular instance, the change to it has been to reduce the size, reduce its impact. The parish supported it last time, so I think it would be unlikely they would have taken a different view had they been here, but we're not in a position to be able to make a decision. So we will just have to, if we can notify the planning authority that we were unable to make a decision because we weren't quorate on that particular item. Okay. Next one is a tree preservation order work up at Pethercombe in Station Road, which is not far from the new development that was called Bakersfield, if members know it. Any comments or questions from that? David, have you got anything on?
no, it's pretty straightforward. It's 5%, so it's very little, and it's just thinning of the crown, so it's good practice.
So our members,
We can say a lot now.
norm would be no observations unless there was something we felt was important. So,
I'll propose no observations.
okay, is that seconded? All those in favour? I will vote on this one because we won't be quorate, and it will mean that should this happen to become very controversial, I won't be able to sit in the committee, but tree preservation orders are very unlikely to make it to committee, so it shouldn't affect us.
Especially 5% of the
Absolutely. The third thing I was going to mention on planning was just an update for members. You will remember we had a planning application in Vole Road, which was for the demolition of a very small bungalow and replace it with a two-storey dwelling. There was concerns raised by this council about whether it was overdevelopment of the site, and there was some concern about sight lines. Mark Parish Council also raised similar concerns about the sight lines. The officers were recommending grant permission, so as the ward councillor I was contacted, as were Tony Grimes, to say should it go to committee. We said as the disagreement was there it should go to committee. The chair and vice chair took the view that it didn't warrant to go to committee, so it has been delegated approval. But that's the reason it didn't make it to committee. It's under the new delegation scheme. But just in case, if members of the public say to you, well, you objected to it, why did it happen? You can let them know. Okay, next item then is clerk's report. Oh, wait.
There's a few items. In fact, one of them's been covered. I was about to read a statement actually about social media, but that's actually been covered by the chairman's remarks. So I won't go into the reading of that document because it covers the same things basically. Surgery. We had yesterday surgery, parish surgery, which was our Tuesday regular surgery occasion. We had a couple of visitors, and most of it, I think, is stuff that we've dealt with was ongoing. In fact, all of it is ongoing stuff to do with speed, to do with reams, and I think that was about it really. I don't think there were any other issues that came up, new issues, were there? I don't recall that. One of the things I mentioned as chairman yesterday, whether we can reconsider the surgery is in its present format, and whether we perhaps should look at a slightly different way forward, because clearly we're not attracting perhaps as many people as we used to at surgery. Some councillors can't come to it because they're working and so on and so forth. So perhaps later on, perhaps in the autumn, we need to have a fresh look at whether we have an evening surgery perhaps, but do it less frequently. Maybe have a quarterly one, but make a bit more of it and have some proper refreshments and so forth, and make it a bit more of an occasion.
Yeah, because I was going to say, people have mentioned things to me about, whatever's going on in the village, and I've said to come to the surgery, but if they're working, they can't. So, yeah, I think an evening would be a good idea.
I think it might be a good idea to consider that, certainly for from the autumn, perhaps.
And we did on another occasion, a couple of times we did the Meet the Councillors, which was we did a Saturday morning. And again, it might be that a mix up with different times, just to try and see what gets the best turnout and what people are interested in coming.
And the village agent comes as well. Kim comes, that's always a good thing. So I'm sure she would probably participate in any review that we did. So that's the surgery. Confirmation of meeting papers. Well, everybody here, that doesn't apply to, but we've had one councillor who now has not confirmed receipt of papers for the last 2 meetings. Now that is a problem because it is a legal requirement that if we're now using electronic means of communication for meetings, then it is a requirement to officially receipt that they've received them. Because when we used to drop them through people's letterboxes, which is what I used to do in the early days, I knew they'd been received because I dropped them in the letterbox. But now we're doing email, so something which we need to be aware of, I think, is going forward. And the only other thing I wanted to say was to do with and again, this doesn't apply to anybody here, but query on the insurance provider. You may recall that back in the early part of May, I sent a note out because we were in the process of changing insurers, because our existing insurers were not only giving us fairly bad service, but they were also putting their charges up by about 19% for what was basically slightly less cover. So I made inquiries through the Clerks network and found that clear councils were offering a very good deal for parish councils throughout the country, and so I inquired, got quotes from them, and because of the time scale whereby our existing policy was expiring at the end of May, I had to do something before this meeting. So I sent out a note asking whether everybody could just give me the nod that they were happy with the new insurance policy. It makes no changes on our previous one. The conditions, all the policy is exactly the same. In fact, it slightly improves the cover for things like the SIDS and the ANPR. But there were two members who simply said no to that. What I would have asked tonight would be, if you said no, were you prepared to leave us uninsured for a period of 4 or 5 days, which would have happened had we left it to this meeting. But since the members involved are not here, it's not a question I can ask. But I think it's worth raising the matter, so that insurance is a pretty serious situation, really. So that's all I've got to say, anything else?
Okay, thank you very much. Footpath team, is there anything particularly?
There's ongoing issue with the footpath going up the knoll, with the fencing and stuff. The landowner, I had a conversation with her a couple of days ago, and she started locking gates going through to the farmyard because people are opening them, leaving them open, X, Y, Z. I said, I don't know what we could do, but I would bring it up at this meeting. She now feels that she can't use her ground because the fences have been demolished to the extent where she can't rent it out for sheepkeep. And she says this is, as I said, I haven't really examined it and I don't know, but that she'd had, we know it was knocked down on in a few places on a couple of occasions, and she'd had parts of it repaired, and it's all been demolished again, and people are just refusing to stick to the path that is designated. So I said, I don't know what we do about it, but I said I would come and mention it tonight.
Okay. I mean, technically the fence is the landowner's responsibility. The footpath is across their land, so I mean, if the fence wasn't there, obviously the stock would run up to the hedge as opposed to up to the edge of the fence. I don't think there's any. I mean, we've tried to help in the past with doing odd repairs, but I mean, we can't keep.
It's a last job. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
Okay,
I don't
well,
know.
Let's have we have a look at it up there and see what it does involve.
It might be worth a few of us going up there and having a look and maybe
Yeah.
having a chat to her and
Because ultimately,